Ozzy and Kelly Osbourne, Boris Becker and Matt Lucas on Friday Night with Jonathan Ross at 10:35 here on BBC One.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Have I Got News for You. I'm Dara O'Brien. My first duty tonight is to draw your attention to a written request which arrived in the office this week from Techman Whitlock. As he says himself, well known as the coffer from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I would be delighted, he continues, to be invited as a guest panellist on Have I Got News for You. It would be an excellent opportunity for you to have more fun with my name. Although we don't actually need to have him here to do that. For instance, if you rearrange the letters of Techman Whitlock into a hilarious anagram, you almost get desperate publicity-seeking coughing arse. In the news this week, hygiene inspectors admit that Blackpool Beach may be about to lose its blue flag status. In Bristol, the Fish Marketing Board is accused of rigging its survey on the popularity of mackerel. And at the High Court, the prosecution unveils the shocking hidden camera footage which led to the arrest of the Invisible Man. On Ian Hislop's team tonight, a columnist and author whose latest book was promoted with the slogan, "There's funny and there's John O'Farrell." So I have no idea which one we're going to get tonight. Please welcome John O'Farrell. And on Paul Merton's team is a man who is currently suing the Daily Telegraph for saying that he received money from Saddam's regime. I should point out that the BBC lawyers have specifically asked us not to... Would you please welcome George Galloway? And so we start as ever with round one. Ian and John, what's going on here?
That's a very loud tie, unsurprisingly.
Well done, elections. There's one person's votes. There's a very complex proportional representation system in Northern Ireland, and the way it's actually panned out is that the new First Minister of the Assembly may well be Slobodan Milosevic. Could be worse. It could be, you know, the peace process in the hands of Gerry Adams and Ian Paisley, but that would be ridiculous.
Yeah. With lots of centrist moderate candidates, they voted for all the extremists. So they've got Sinn Féin and the DUP, not the UUP or even the OUP, because you can't really vote for a dictionary. It's the big test for Paisley, though, isn't it?
He did say during the week that he would be constructive about... Well, when I say he said that, he said, constructive! Do you know what their nicknames are?
Is it Mr. No?
It's almost, but...
Dr. No.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't forget the doctorate, which he purchased himself. Let's run that one by the law, Zoe. Don't forget the doctorate, which he earned legally. And Adams as well?
We're all going to be very nice about Gerry Adams, couldn't he?
No, not necessarily. What is his nickname?
It's Brownie, for some reason. Brownie.
Was he in the Brownies? Did he get his, you know, kneecapping badge?
George, who do you support? I mean, Glasgow is Belfast light. So where do you stand on the whole thing, or are you just completely Muslim now at this stage?
This is a classic story. Mr. Blair's been flying around the world sorting out everyone else's problems, and now it looks like we've got a war on our own doorstep about to start again, certainly if Dr. No has his way.
He might be taking the whole Dr. No thing a bit too seriously. There isn't like a hollowed-out volcano just outside Belfast. This is the result of the Northern Ireland elections, where the big winner was Ian Paisley's Democratic Unionist Party. After the result, Paisley triumphantly announced, "I am in the driving seat." Though the bad news, of course, is that Adams will be riding shotgun. Some people accuse Ian Paisley of being arrogant, egocentric and far too full of himself, a claim vigorously denied by his son, Ian Paisley Jr. Paul and George, this is yours.
This is obviously a classroom. money, class and money put together. This is
Sheer
tuition
class.
fees, isn't it?
There's my name, yes.
Does he get a point for recognising his own name in print?
That's Charles Clarke and Tony Blair, both of whom were educated at one of our best universities entirely free and got a student grant to do so, and who have now burned the ladder up which they themselves climbed, so that our sons and daughters cannot do the same, by introducing tuition fees.
I do have to draw up in the whole our sons and daughters things. The paternity test to come through. And there's no connection between you and my children at all, I'm delighted to say.
This is actually the last Christmas whereby children will get their presents from Father Christmas for free. The government is introducing a system whereby the kids will have to pay them back over a number of years.
Every one of the cabinet, except John Prescott, was educated at one of our best universities.
John Prescott went to one of the best universities, but the university in question asked him to keep very quiet about it.
How many rebels are there at the moment, George?
150.
What is Blair going to do in reaction
We've
to this?
delayed the vote.
Well, the whips are out crunching knuckles and offering under-secretaryships for paper clips and trips to Brussels.
Is that what they do, really?
That's what they do, yes. Yes. And,
Any come your way?
No.
Trips to Baghdad, I suppose?
No.
What was Labour's aims with regard to higher education?
We said that we would not introduce top-up fees, and now we are.
The 2001 manifesto said we will not introduce top-up fees and have legislated to prevent them.
Yeah.
Rather a U-turn.
We have to face up to the fact we've got a liar as a Prime Minister, and it's up to us whether to go
Jesus, that'd be
ahead
a
with
first, wouldn't it? Well, what piece of blatant PR puffery has Labour launched this week?
Oh, it's the big conversation. Tony talks, you listen.
The Telegraph actually revealed a flaw in the big conversation during the week. Did you see that story?
Anyone who said that they didn't think Blair was marvellous got edited out on the webpage.
George, there's excellent standard reporting there from the Telegraph. You're a big fan of the newspaper, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll see them in court. I had a meeting with my legal team this afternoon.
Writ served?
You, as the editor of Private Eye, must know that we can't talk about these kind of things on air.
Can't you?
No.
That must be where I've gone wrong, at least.
Part of it was that you implied that you had connections to the oil industry, wasn't it?
In what sense?
What's this?
That's an oil rig.
It is. It's called the George Galloway. It's in the Middle East at the moment.
That's fantastic. You see, if the Telegraph had had that, we'd have all have believed it.
And legally, I have to say this, that there might be a different George Galloway after whom it's named, possibly.
In fact, he's been going around the world causing me problems all my life. That.
Really?
And that, Your Honour, is the case for Mr. Galloway.
Yes, this is the row over university top-up fees. Burdening students with debt can have a long-term effect. According to one 32-year-old who can't afford to leave home, it strikes me as horrific that at 40 I could still be living with my parents. Just a wild guess, loser, but they're probably not too thrilled about it either. Ian and John, a spinning headline for you. We're not anti the real thing.
This is, the BBC are in trouble because Top of the Pops is going to be mentioning Coca-Cola as it's the sponsor of the charts.
Specifically, what does Coca-Cola claim not to do with regard to advertising?
Well, Coke said it doesn't advertise to under 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And presumably they're the only people who are interested in the charts.
There was an offer for sponsorship of Top of the Pops from Stannah Stairlifts, but they didn't take it in the end.
You could have sort of countdown from 10 to number 1 actually on the stairs as a stair lift goes down. It's an ideal marriage between product and programme, surely.
The irony of all this, of course, was announced on the same day as what?
As the government's clamped down on obesity and fat kids.
It is, yeah. MP David Hinchcliffe, Hitchcliffe.
I know him. I work with the man.
Have you?
Aye.
Yeah, but you probably don't talk to him anymore, do you?
No, I do. I do, as a matter of fact.
Yet another page torn out of Galloway's little book of contacts.
No, he's one of the good guys.
Is he?
Yeah.
I should be thrilled to hear you say that as well.
On your H page in the address book, Hinchcliffe, Hussain, they're all in there.
What has he actually done? David Hinchcliffe, what has he suggested this week with regard to the labelling of food in particular?
Oh, that there should be a health warning on Coca-Cola, well, soft fizzy drinks and crisps and things like that.
Who else are considering scrapping their school sponsorship programme?
Is it Cadbury's? Because they were going to sponsor the sports grounds and the physical education of the nation's youth while stuffing Mars bars down their throat.
Yes, and I don't know the exact figures, don't hold me this, is something like we will give you a football for every 4 tons of chocolate your child eats. And he can bounce it up and down with his fat hand. Yes, this is the BBC's controversial plugging of Coca-Cola on top of the pops. Few people are aware how much exercise is needed to burn off the calories contained in junk food. According to one expert, a McDonald's cheeseburger with fries and a shake requires a 9-mile walk. Although, to be honest, it's often just a 2-minute car ride. Paul and George, I'm on the weakest link. Goodbye.
OK, this was the prison officer. He was being done for corruption, and he suggested to the judge, can we finish early tonight because I'm on the weakest link? I don't want to go home and watch it. And the judge said, well, no. To be honest, you can't.
I have to point out he hasn't been found guilty, only accused. Are there any other prison officers' stories in the news this week?
Yeah,
Yes.
one was sacked, wasn't he, for making an Osama bin Laden gag in the presence of some Asian prison visitors.
And did the Asian prison visitors hear the guy?
No.
He chucked some keys down a chute or something.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, Osama bin Laden's down there. And it might be that Osama bin Laden really was down there. He's been hiding there the whole time.
You'd think they would have followed up on that lead.
Yeah. It's the first break they've had.
George, you haven't had keys thrown at you at any stage?
No,
have you?
no.
But you've had enough things thrown at you over the years, haven't you?
But I'm doing all right. I'm standing in the European Parliament elections next year.
Yeah, but why are you running for Europe in a load of constituencies of people who don't know you?
Oh, I think they know me, yeah. If you've been on any of our demonstrations, over 6 demonstrations in the last 12 months, you'll know I'm the headline act.
I'm intrigued by the notion of you as a headline act, to be honest. Did you work your way up the clubs? What all I was asking was, have you ever been thrown at you?
Yeah, I had an egg. I had 2 eggs thrown at me, and as a former amateur boxer, I deftly dodged both of them.
You certainly did. This is how deftly you dodged them.
For that introduction, and the welcome, welcome, apart from that stage.
The yoke's on me, I'll give you that. The yoke's on me.
Yeah. Headline act, ladies and gentlemen. So at the end of that round, the scores are quite even. Paul, George, John and Ringo, it's 4 points each. And so to round 2 this week, there has been a procession of public figures committing gaffes of all shapes and sizes. So it's a welcome return for the Have I Got News For You Gaffometer. Yes, Paul and George, you get the first one, so for the two of you, let's roll the gaffometer.
That's William Hague.
It is indeed.
He made an after-dinner speech this week where he did an Irishman, an Englishman, a Scotsman joke. I can't remember what the joke was.
Would you like me to do it?
Yes, please.
Because I would love to do, as a tribute to William Hague resurrecting stupid Irishman jokes. There's an Englishman, a Scotsman and an Irishman. The Englishman says he named his son George because he was born on St. George's Day. The Scotsman says he named his son Andrew because he was born on St. Andrew's Day. And the Irishman says he named his son Pancake. It's not even called Pancake Day in Ireland.
No.
Ireland's a Catholic country. It's called Shrove Tuesday.
This doesn't make any sense at all.
What sort of bizarre Irishman would be walking around going, I called him Pancake, because that's what you would have called it. William Hague has just started writing a hard-hitting political column for the News of the World under the strapline, he knows, he's been there. But of course, in the case of number 10, only for a look. Ian and John, your first roll of the gaffometer.
Is that Blunkett?
It is indeed, yeah.
There was an arrest of someone who may turn out to have been a terrorist. Blunkett got a bit overexcited and said this person was a threat to the life and liberty of the country. And he's Home Secretary. He's meant to know what the contempt laws are, unlike me, who actually
Who
do
now
know.
probably does know what the contempt of court laws are.
I do, having been found guilty once. I made a point of remembering. My lawyer's in tonight.
So is mine, he's the same lawyer.
Right, he's sacked.
This week, Blunkett was shown to have a black eye, which he laughed off, saying it wasn't from a fight with Michael Howard. That's what he thinks. Paul and George, you're going the gaffometer.
Donald Rumsfeld.
Yes, it is.
Has landed on him. Well, he won a prize for bad English, I think. Well, have we got a clip of it?
We have a clip of it. Do you want to see it? It's very nice.
Yes.
Donald Rumsfeld.
There are known knowns. There are things we know that we know. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we now know we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns. There are things we do not know we don't know.
This is the man with his finger on the button.
What does he know? Ian and John, over to you on the gaffometer.
That's Tony Blair. Is it that his CV was published this week in one of the papers in which he called himself Tony Blair or something?
Yeah.
And it's from when he applied for a selection in 1983. And he obviously typed it out very quickly and said he'd promised socialism. And it was a typing mistake, obviously.
Clearly he wasn't the best typer in the world. To be honest. He said Sherry was some Liverpool. He also had a comment that Sherry is now a barrister, having come top in the professional exams in 1976 for the whole country. Ooh, you and your trophy wife. To a section called Views and Intents, he said, I support party policy as determined by party conference. When arguments do take place, they should take place within the party, not on the media, and in a spirit of democracy. That means not only the right to express your views, but the right to have them listened to. Right up until the point you're expelled, presumably, eh? George?
Absolutely, yeah.
You've been expelled from loads of things, haven't you?
No, no.
You were expelled from school at one stage?
No, no. Somebody's been briefing you wrongly. I was a model schoolboy. In fact, the...
You went to Legoland?
The next one goes over to Paul and George.
That's the Ferris wheel that's gone to Birmingham, isn't it? If you get into this Ferris wheel in Birmingham, you can hear a description of the marvellous skyline of Paris. Because they haven't changed the tapes over, they can't work out how to do it. So people are going up into this thing in Birmingham saying, oh, look, the Eiffel Tower's just behind you. Where's the Champs-Elysees? It's round the back of Debenhams, and you know that.
Would it be better if they did it for Birmingham, but then in French as well? There's a voice going, Voici la bullring.
Yeah.
À Birmingham, nous avons plus canals que Venice. Oui, je ne le believe it either. There are, of course, many, many differences between the two cities. Paris is 2.5 hours away from London by train, whereas Birmingham is about 9. Back over to Ian and John. It's a pair of pants.
We've seen these a lot in the paper this week. They belong to a Labour MP called Chris Bryant. And he appeared on the net, naked except for these pants, saying, hi, I'm your member for Parliament.
I'll be standing in 3 years' time. I hope I can count on your support. And can you see my bollocks through this material?
The constituency reaction, actually, they said a lot of people are very disappointed. This sort of behaviour is not what you expect from an MP. It's exactly what I'd expect from an MP.
Well, it used to be just Tory MPs, but it just shows how Labour have gone now. They copy everything.
At the end of round 2, the scores are as follows. Very, very tight. Paul and George have 8 points, but in the lead, Ian and John with 9.
How have we got 9?
The odd one out round is next. Ian and John, your 4 are the Saatchi brothers, George Bush, Sinbad, and George Galloway.
That's a very early photo of George Bush, isn't it?
Or is that a child who's been called George Bush? This is an Iraqi question, because the Saatchi brothers are Iraqi by descent. Sinbad was an Iraqi. Is it people who've been to Baghdad?
Born in Baghdad.
Born in Baghdad.
You're right
So
about
the Saatchi brothers were born in Baghdad, were they? This child, George Bush, was obviously born in Iraq. George wasn't born there, but would like to have been.
Is absolutely the correct answer. Yeah.
Very good. Saatchi means watchmaker. They're Iraqi Jews, and their antecedents were the main watchmakers in Baghdad.
Why did Nadia Yergish Mohammed and Abdul Khader Faras name their baby George Bush?
Because they're so happy at the toppling of Saddam.
That's exactly it. And if they had another child, what would they say? What do they call it?
George Bush Senior.
It would be Tony Blair.
It would be Tony Blair. Sinbad the Sailor, 1,000 years of Sinbad mythology.
However, the new Hollywood movie about Sinbad is a Greek sailor in the new Hollywood movie because they couldn't bear to market a film in America at the current time where the hero was an Iraqi.
Sinbad and the weapons of mass destruction. It's not going to be a big one in Arkansas, is it?
Who else is in the film with Brad Pitt? It's Catherine Zeta-Jones, who was born where?
She was born in Mumbles.
She was born in Mumbles.
I only know that because so was I. Oh. We share so much. A talent for litigation, mostly.
And Michael Douglas's affection, surely.
George, you weren't born in Baghdad, but you have visited there. How often?
Oh, quite a few times.
And all those times that you've been to Hussein's, and you've never had them back. Poor Saddam and Mrs. Hussein are probably sitting up in bed at this moment. You know, the Galloways never had us back, did they?
The funny thing is, I met Saddam Hussein twice, exactly the same number of times as Donald Rumsfeld, though he was selling him weapons and I was trying to avoid the war. But you never see a picture of Donald Rumsfeld with Saddam Hussein. It's funny that.
Can we see a picture of someone with...
We can see a picture of George Galloway with him.
Sir, I salute your courage, your strength, your indefatigability.
سيدي اسمحوا لي أن أحيي شجاعتكم وقوتكم وصمودكم الذي لا يكلأ.
And I want you to know that we are with you, Hatal Nasser, Hatal Nasser, Hatal Quds. Funnily enough, the translator there has just written a book, admittedly in French, but the Times translated it.
Still a book?
In which he said... that Saddam hated my guts. That's what he says in his book.
Well, so would anyone else, yeah. Crawling up his arse like that.
The answer is they were all born in Baghdad, with the exception of George Galloway, who was born in Dundee. George Galloway has met Saddam Hussein on a number of occasions, but according to an old friend of his, the only living person Galloway's scared of is his wife. And she hasn't gassed any Kurds. During the recent war, George received numerous death threats, including one that said, "You traitorous little fat shit, why don't you piss off back to Iraq?" And normally you'd have to be 100 before you get a telegram from the Queen. Paul and George, your four are the 118 runners, Richard Curtis, Ibrahim Al-Marashi, and Richard Curtis again.
OK. Well, the 118 runners are subject to an action from David Bedford, the marathon runner from the early 70s, who claims that the 118 runners were based on how he looked in the 70s. Does that got anything to do with it?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Was Al-Marashi. He was the chap whose PhD was stolen off the internet and presented by Tony Blair as the red-hot intelligence, hot off the press of our intelligence services. So in that sense, Tony Blair was impersonating Al-Marashi.
Now, I think it's about plagiarism. Because this man's thesis was plagiarised to put into the new Labour book of where the weapons are.
Oh, Richard Curtis has plagiarised himself?
No, he was accused by someone this week of plagiarising a script for Love Actually.
Oh, right.
Curtis is there twice, by the way.
He's been accused twice of plagiarism?
Yeah, OK, that's solved.
So the 118 and Curtis have been accused of plagiarism, and Al-Marashi is accusing Tony Blair.
You're absolutely right. According to a former flatmate, what is the worst thing Curtis ever did?
Was it kill a man? In Reno, just to watch him die? Did he force-feed dog shit to his mother on one of his birthdays?
We would have accepted Mr. Bean as an answer to that. He apparently once got arrested for stealing a Sunday supplement from a pile of newspapers. The 118 runners, yes, it is David Bedford, the 1970s long-distance runner, who claims that the runners in the ad stole his image. The answer is, of course, they've all been accused of copying, except Ibrahim Al-Marashi, whose thesis was plagiarised by the British government for its dodgy dossier on Iraq. According to the film's production company, Richard Curtis had the idea for a film in which the Prime Minister falls in love with the Downing Street tea lady back in 1982, which is when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. So originally some sort of lesbian horror movie there. The final round is Missing Words, featuring this week's guest publication, Electrifying Times, the journal of the electrifying community. Here goes. What startles spacemen?
Labour MP in his underpants.
David Bowie.
It's odd noise is the correct answer.
That's what I said.
According to The Guardian, 2 astronauts on the International Space Station were disturbed by a muffled bang coming from the area of the sleeping quarters and lavatory. It was followed apparently by an alien emerging and saying, "I'd give that a couple of your Earth minutes." Next, what does 0 to 25 in 4 seconds?
Is it faulty stairlift?
Is it new electric car from Japan?
It's very close. It's electric skateboard, is the answer. This is an inventor's new electric skateboard, according to Electrifying Times. A newcomer to the electric vehicle scene, Louis Finkel is a name to be reckoned with. As in, I reckon Louis Finkel doesn't have a girlfriend. Next, Esther Ranson is condemned for what?
Dry rot?
Is it pet food?
A no-win, no-fee.
That's exactly it.
legal aid.
It's no win, no fee.
Ambulance chasing advert.
It is, yeah. Next, what smiles when you drive well?
Oh, this is the happy goat. It's a new thing you can put down to the Christmas campaigns coming up, the drink driving. You put a goat on the front of the bonnet of your car, and as long as and it's connected up into your speedometer, and as long as you're within the within the correct speed, the goat smiles. And then if you go fast, the goat groo like that. And it's easier for the police to spot. They don't know there's an unhappy goat, book him. And they drag you off, and they read the goat's entrails, and it tells you what speed you were doing. It's the happy goat smiles when you drive well. Is that right? The new electric car from Japan.
Yes, the remarkable Toyota Pod. You're absolutely right.
Oh, so it's from Japan?
Yes, it is. It's an electric car. This is the Electrifying Time. Toyota's revolutionary new electric car, which they claim will grow with you and your family and friends, which is handy because when the battery runs out, they'll have to help you push it to a plug. Next, what takes heavy toll on bears?
Loss of toilet facilities in woods.
It's actually burger binge.
Oh.
Yeah. Bears in America are becoming obese after binging on leftovers they find when foraging in towns. According to one expert, in California, it's becoming increasingly common for residents to wake up and find an unwelcome, fat, furry visitor slumped in the kitchen. Admittedly, it's usually Kelly Osbourne, and it's a cry for help. And finally, Electric Al's Robo-mower needs what?
A new battery delivered from Japan. It needs a new battery.
Very close. A 32 spiral wound battery.
Right.
Yes, right.
Excellent.
To mow his lawn, Electric Al Godfrey uses a 5-channel model airplane RC servo unit to control the converted 42-inch GE E12 Electrac, upgraded to 36 volts with 3 large Optima Group 32 spiral wound batteries. He could just have bought a goat. That brings us to the end of tonight's contest, and the final scores are as follows. With a late surge, Ian and John still on 12, but the winners are Paul and George with 13. Oh. But before we go, it's just time for our caption competition.
Is the dog saying, can I ask a question number 3, please, Zilla? Men with wooden tongues fail to amuse Lassie.
I'll leave you with the news that Richard Branson comes up with a surefire way of ingratiating himself with the Labour leadership. In Baghdad, a new pizza firm guarantees delivery within 45 minutes. And at the premiere of Love Actually, one moviegoer shows how hilarious she found the idea of the Prime Minister having an affair with his tea lady. Thank you very much. Good night.
And you can see what you've just seen, but the uncut version tomorrow at 10:30 on BBC Two. And if you missed EastEnders earlier, catch it now on BBC Three.